What's up, Falcons fans? Harrison Graham here for Chat Sports for today's episode of Atlanta Falcons Today. And on today's show, we're going to take a look at 5 wide receivers that the Falcons could still sign in free agency. Still think you need to add a player at that position, so we'll get into that. Also, ESPN's Aaron Schatz was pretty strong about his thoughts about the Falcons adding a receiver as well. Here's what he had to say here. We came not to bury Drake London, but to praise him. London had an excellent rookie year as the clear top option in Atlanta, finishing tied for 29th in ESPN's new receiver rankings. The problem with Atlanta, with their wide receiver room, is everyone else. The other outside receiver, ex-Raider Mack Hollins, is coming off a career year at age 29. He had never put up more than 250 yards in a season before he had 690 yards on 57 catches last year. The third receiver is Scotty Miller, who just combined for 223 yards on 28 receptions over the past 2 seasons. And I think the point Schatz is making is, sure, if Mack Hollins repeats what he did last year and gives you 600, 700 yards, yeah, that's a decent wide receiver too, but history says that's unlikely. So in a perfect world, you would upgrade at wide receiver 2. Maybe Hollins is like your third outside guy that rotates in, and then Scotty Miller stays in the slot, hoping for a little bit of a resurgence there. The point is, though, you would like to add it to this room. What do you guys think? Is the wide receiver position the biggest position of need on this roster? Type Y for yes, or you can type in for no. This will be the pinned comment on today's video. And after this YouTube ad break, we will break down 5 receivers that the Falcons should sign. Number 1, bring him back, baby. Bring him back. Julio to Atlanta. One final ride. Why not? Why not? I thought Julio flashed at times last year with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, if you're expecting him to come in here and catch 80 balls and have 1,200 yards, you're going to be disappointed. But he's a Falcons legend. That's number 1. The career numbers, speak for themselves, especially the catches and yards. And number 2, maybe you can kind of stagger him and Mack Hollins, right? Where Drake London's playing most of the snaps, but between Jones and Hollins, they kind of split the snaps at the other big wide receiver position. I think you could try Julio in the slot some as well if you want to. Last year, in just 10 games, for just playing 10 games, this actually isn't bad. 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. If you put that over 17 games, that's probably about 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. You're telling me if you signed Julio Jones and he gave you 500 yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns, I would take that in a heartbeat. If he gave you 2021 stats, but maybe a few more touchdowns, I would absolutely do that. And I think he's still got that in him. The problem is, as you see, 10 games, 9 games. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. But if he can give you 12 or 13, catch 40 balls for 500 yards, I think that would be a huge success. And I think it's possible at this point in his career. What do you think? Should the Falcons bring back Julio? I don't think it would cost much. Type S for sign or P for pass. I'd love to see it. Bring Julio back to the ATL. Now, Aaron Schatz labeled someone else as a better fit in terms of type of receiver for the Falcons, so we'll break down this player next. And here is Aaron Schatz. He says the rest of the depth chart has combined for 2 regular season NFL catches. The non-London Atlanta receivers are mostly known as field stretchers, making this an excellent landing spot for a veteran slot receiver such as Jarvis Landry. So let's talk about Jarvis Landry. Spent last season with the Saints. Of course, has had really good years as a slot. You think of his days in Miami, a couple years with Cleveland as well. Now, the production has declined. There's simply no doubt. He had some injuries last year, didn't have a great year with New Orleans. But kind of like Julio, right? If he gave you something like the 2021 season, 500 yards, couple tutties, I would take that. And I think fully healthy, he's probably a better slot option than Scotty Miller. Let's just be honest. I think he would actually be an upgrade there. So if you want to add a better slot, I think Landry could be the guy for that job. I'll tell you what, if the Falcons sign a receiver, we're going to make a video. That's just a fact. So subscribe to the channel. Don't miss out on our coverage. We've been plugging out videos every single day for you guys, whether it's Petey or if he's out, I'm filling in. By the way, shout out Petey. The man is in shambles today after he got his wisdom teeth pulled. He's hanging in there. He'll be back soon enough. Subscribe, show Petey some love, and Falcons Today here at Chat Sports. Let's keep this channel growing. All right, number 3 here, Kenny Golladay. As let's just be honest, the Giants' stint was a disaster. He was so bad with the New York Football Giants that I don't even know what to say. Now, you look at career numbers between Jarvis Landry and Kenny Golladay, just different type of receivers, right? When Golladay was in Detroit, I was like, this is one of the best X receivers in the NFL. Stretch the field, high point the football. That's what the Giants were banking on. And then he had some injuries, couldn't do much. Just never seemed to work out there in New York. But throw a flyer. You could certainly do worse. I wouldn't have him high on my list. I'd rather go Julio or Landry myself. But you need a receiver badly. So if you think Golladay is the answer, then hey, go get Kenny Golladay. If you think it's Julio, go get Julio. I'm fine with any of these guys, but Golladay has a lot to prove if he's going to get back to being a solid NFL player. Now, we do have these long sleeve shirts available for sale at chatsports.com/Falcons long sleeve. Pick one up today. Get a nice deal as it's warming up. Cash in now with the discount and, stash these for when things cool down again. Chatsports.com/Falcons long sleeve. Go pick one up today. Couple more receivers. You want to go more upside potential guy who hasn't reached it. Nikhil Harry, who spent the first few years in New England, last year with the Chicago Bears. It's a flyer, no doubt, and he had a couple of downfield catches last year for Chicago. If you guys don't know, I actually cover the Bears here at Chat Sports. I was a little surprised he didn't play a little bit more, to be honest, considering how bad their receiver room was. Of course, first-round pick, so there's some pedigree here. It just never completely came together for him. Whether it was in New England or in Chicago. You look at his career numbers, you're like, that's a great one season, but he did that over 40 games, 5 touchdowns. Again, though, he had a couple of flash plays last year. I was a little surprised more didn't come. Not the greatest route runner. One thing he does pretty well, though, is go win those 50-50 balls. Now, obviously, you can't design an offense around just a jump ball receiver, but hey, take a shot one time a game with him, something like that. He'll give you a big play here and there. Again, not highest on my list, but someone that is still out there. Sammy Watkins, if I knew he was healthy, I would maybe have him number 1. But you want to talk about guys who can't stay healthy. That is Sammy Watkins. Week 1, Sammy, listen, if you're in a fantasy league and he's on a roster, pick him up in the last round of your draft, play him week 1, and then try and trade him because he won't do anything the rest of the season. Jokes a little bit, but it's kind of crazy how he's done that. But yeah, a common theme with a lot of these guys is injuries. He just hasn't, been able to stay healthy. Now, the last couple of years, he's actually played 12 and 13 games, but I think the prior injuries have piled up to the point where he's just not the same caliber player. But I'd probably rather have him than Nikhil Harry, if I'm being completely honest. But again, it depends on what the style of receiver, too. Do you want a slot? Do you want an outside guy? Do you want to go more speed with Sammy Watkins? I selfishly would like to see them bring back Julio. I just think that would be a lot of fun, but it'll be fascinating to see how this shakes out. I do think Atlanta needs to add at least one more receiver. Now, what wide receiver do you think the Falcons should sign? Let me know in the comments. And, hey, maybe there's a post-June 1 cut out there that Atlanta ends up nabbing. We'll have to wait and see on that front. But certainly limited options, but still some guys that I think could help out this team. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's show. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We'll be back soon for more Atlanta Falcons YouTube videos. My name is Harrison Graham signing off. We'll see you guys next time.